नित्यानन्देश्वरसमारम्भां नित्यानन्देश्वरिमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. I welcome all the devotees, disciples, Samajis, Satsangis, Sri Mahants, Mahants, Kotaris, Tanedars, visitors, viewers sitting with us through Nityananda TV, Sadhana TV, two-way video conferencing, having Nayana Diksha, cities sitting with us all over the world, having Nayana Diksha, Ravensburg, Germany, Dubai, Vaidyanatham, St. Louis, Tirumala, Tallahassee, Florida, Indrani, New Jersey, Kuala Lumpur, Parani, Hyderabad, Guptakashi, Nityananda Nagaramu, Hyderabad, Guadalupe, Rameshwaram, Ohio, Prayag, Houston, Kalahasti, Seattle, Chidambaram, Charlotte, Srisailam, Singapore, Singapuram, Hong Kong, Sirgari, Los Angeles, Hollywood, St. Louis, Tirumala, Jorpati, Nepal, Houston, Kalahasti, Amersfoort, Netherlands, Toronto, Kailasam, Oklahoma, Somanatham, Los Angeles, Hollywood, Scottsdale, Arizona, Scottsdale, and San Jose, Madurai, Nityananda University, Los Angeles, Milan Chowk, Nepal, Nityananda Nagaram, Tiruvannamalai, and Nityananda University, Paris. I welcome all of you with my love and respects. I was seeing Cambodia when we were presenting about the inner awakening. The moment I started the subject Cambodia, I think many people who are watching the satsang relaxed. Many who were watching the satsang relaxed. Oh God, he's going to talk about something of a spiritual subject. I am a spiritual guy. I do only my spiritual work. Sit and be chanting Shivogam, Shiva, Rama, Krishna, Govinda, and doing my work. And whatever I know as Advaita, experience, spirituality, enlightenment, yoga, puja, I'll be doing by myself and I'll be teaching to people. And I'll live my simple, humble life. That's a big freedom actually, not having the vengeance, not having the violence, not having the revenge. It's a big freedom. You can live your future so beautifully. Actually, vengeance binds the way you think and proceed in your life. It curtails the opportunities and possibilities for you. When you don't have vengeance, that is the biggest freedom. That's such big freedom, such great freedom. I am not even looking at non-violence and not having the revengeful quality from the angle of morality. Of course, morality is one. I am looking at the angle of the tremendous freedom it gives you. When you don't have revenge, when you don't have vengeance, what a freedom it gives you. Kind of a unimaginable free space it gives you. And you can go on be doing what your life's purpose is. You can go on be fulfilling your life's purpose and you can go on carrying on with your life, and that is a fulfillment, that's a joy. There's no distraction. Come on. Today I'll expand on Cambodia. I wanted all of you to know, please listen, as some of the Western historians are claiming, Cambodia temples are not 900 or 1000 year old. They are far more older. And the information now I am going to reveal will be the shocking. Please understand. Whatever information I am revealing to you all, it is all from Akashic records. Now maybe the historians have not found out what I am saying, but let me put this on record. Later on some historians will prove what I am saying. First thing I want to tell you, many of the temples in Angkor Wat was not carved and built in Cambodia or Angkor Wat. Please listen. Many of the temples exist in Cambodia are not carved and built in Cambodia. You may be thinking, what are you talking? What Swamiji is talking? I want you to know, many of them were carved in Mahabalipuram, Tamil Nadu. In Chennai, many of them were carved and taken by ship, including the elephants. Please understand. When at first the Pallava king, Pallava kingdom is the Kanchipuram, Chennai, Mahabalipuram, that whole area is Pallava kingdom. When Pallava kings were in their golden period, when they were traveling through the ocean and discovered the Cambodia's route and the place, first it started more like a trade relationship, then marriage relationship. The Pallava king married the Cambodian tribe's head's daughter. That time they were tribes, and then they were impressed by the culture of Pallava lifestyle and kingdom. Please understand, we never used weapons and conquered, destroyed the people of the land and snatched land from them. We never did that. It was a beautiful way of cultural spreading, or I can say that cultures merging. So, when whole Cambodia was celebrating, whole Cambodia started celebrating the Pallava culture, they requested the Suryavarma to settle down there and build a kingdom. Please understand, Cambodia at that time did not have craftsmen and the whole technology of creating. So, at least the initial few temples completely carved, assembled in Mahabalipuram, numbered and dismantled. Please understand, when I am talking with a lot of sense and responsibility. I will give you some of the tips for the people who are in this field of archaeology and people who are doing research, how these monumental temples are built. Please understand, there are a lot of dilapidated stones, means the temple stones fallen. Take out every stone, on the top you will see the number, the identification number, not in the present Roman letters, in the original Tamil Prakrit number. It is like few lines. This modern day, what do you call, coding is done for all the products in the malls and for books, barcoding. Exactly the science of barcoding. Please understand, the science of barcoding was used by the Pallava kings. You can see on the top of every stone that barcoding, that signal, that symbol is there. So based on that only the assembling was done. And the whole Cambodia temple, many temples first got built here, dismantled, they have taken it through the ship. Please understand, they took the craftsmen to assemble, their families, all the tools required, and elephants to drag. In the initial level, the tribes in Cambodia, they were not that sophisticated that they are able to make the elephant work. They had some elephants just for riding, and the simple termed elephants they might have had, but they did not have elephants specially trained for assembling temples. Please understand, for assembling temples, a special type of training is given for the elephants, because the way they will have to move, the whole movement should be without damaging the stones. And few elephants have to pull in the front and few have to push in the back. Elephants have to work as a team for building temple. Please understand, cutting wood, transporting wooden logs, elephants does not need to work as team. But for building a temple, elephants need to work as a team. Elephants have their own language, you need to know. For each elephant there is a language. But these temple building elephants, as a whole team, they are trained in a single language. See, the Mahout who brings up the elephant, in course of growing together, usually in Kerala and all they grow together. A child will be given to elephant and an elephant will be given to a child. Both of them grow together. Both of them grow together. That's the way usually in that field. Very rarely after growing up either the Mahout dies or the elephant dies, the change of God happens. Otherwise they grow together. So when they grow together only the language gets developed. The command and the communication, the whole thing gets developed. Usually in all the elephants which does the work like moving the log, moving the wood, cutting the tree, all this kind of work. One elephant will have one mouth and one language, communication system. But in temple building, group of elephants are brought up with the same language and communication system. So temple building elephants need a separate specialization. That team needs a separate knowledge, because in the temple building, one elephant cannot drag a stone. 2-3 has to drag in the front and 2-3 has to push in the back. So one command only they will give, the whole team has to work together. It is very systematic training. The elephants need to be given. So the Cambodian elephants did not have kind of a teamwork training. So the Pallava king has to carry even elephants, trained elephants from here all the way to Cambodia, And one more important thing you need to know, not just tons and tons and tons. I don't know how many billion or trillion tons of material was transported those days based on the available traveling technology. See, to travel in the ocean, that's a separate science and technology. You need to know the season, you need to know the direction, you need to know the mood of the ocean, mood of the wind, you need to know everything. So with the available technology and the available methods, the reaching ratio was only 60%. Please understand, the reaching ratio was only 60%. So if 100 elephants trained gets into the ship here, only 60 will reach Cambodia. So the whole temple has to be carved twice. Understand? The whole temple has to be carved twice. Only then one set will reach Cambodia. And whatever I am saying is not only from the Akashic records, I will give you the references and evidences. Now whatever I described, the whole thing is carved in one wall of the pillar. Please understand, the starting port and the work done in the starting port, those days it was called Mailapuram, Mailapur. Pallava kings used Mailapuram as the headquarters, Mailapur, and Mahabalipuram as the port. And sometimes they used Kanchipuram also as the headquarters, whatever. The whole, that play, please understand how the Mailapuram and Mahabalipuram looked, they have carved. After the skilled craftsmen reached there, after they assembled the temple, one wall they dedicated to describe and depict how the temple was built. Beautifully they have described the whole Purana, how the Suryavarma reaches, marries, and then orders to build the temple, and temple gets built. The basic structure gets built in Mahabalipuram and gets dismantled, gets loaded into the ship. There are clear scenes, temples getting loaded into the ships. How the ships looked in those days. All the clear descriptions are there, and including the information, the elephants were transported. Please understand, it took almost 60 days to anywhere around 6 months. Minimum 60 days and maximum 6 months it took for them to, please understand, I am not talking about directly reaching Cambodia. They were stopping in place to place because elephants need food. Large amount of the materials needed to feed elephant need to be stored in the ships. So on the way they have identified few islands where they will load the fuel. Fuel means not for the ship but for the elephant. The elephant food and the food and water for all the human beings and everything, the loading and whatever is required. So between 60 to 6 months, maybe the whole journey would have taken 6 months, But every 60 days they have identified some islands where they will stop and load the things. And you need to know, every island they stopped, they built a temple. It's clearly recorded in those temple walls where they are describing they built a temple. They assembled a temple, left few hundred people there, whole year working, gathering the fuel and gathering the food and other material needed to support when the ships crash. It is unimaginable task. And finally, eating. Please understand, the description also says elephants cannot be just allowed to not to do any work in the 6 months, then they will become lazy and they will forget. So even while they were getting transported, in the ship they are made to do some work and exercise kind of a thing, so that they are constantly kept active and they don't forget the whole communication method, whole communication system. And they are also describing some of the major accidents happened. When the elephants are kept in the ship for a long time, sometimes they get agitated and start fighting with each other, kill the mahouts and jump into the ocean. Those were some of the major accidents they faced. And sometimes some disease spreading in the whole ocean, in the whole ship. Some disease spreading in the whole ship. The other ships are forced to sink and kill this whole team. No other way. Because they don't want the disease to spread to other ships. When some disease catches one ship, when the animals and the human beings, if they are suffering in the disease, the commander of the whole, maybe usually they travel at least in few hundred ships together. So the commander of the whole team makes a call and then they decide to sink the ship. It's like a sacrificing. Nothing can be done. Otherwise the disease will spread to other ships and other animals, other human beings. Sometimes they are left in the nearest island to take care of themselves. So it's like I could not comprehend when I was studying the whole history, how they built the temple, especially when I started looking into the Akashic records. You see, in Akashic records I get the original live audio video and 3D view. See, literally I can walk into those ships and come out. Please understand, in Akashic records, when you get them back, you get the freedom to get into the time and walk into that whole scene and come out. I can see some of the internal fights, some of the disease, and what not. And the way the whole thing reaches Cambodia. And one more thing you need to know. After reaching the Cambodia, only then they realize now only 25% work is done. Because assembling is the real work. Assembling is the real work. Then they make foundation, find a proper land and assemble. After assembling, the final carving. The fine carving. Always the fine carving was dedicated to the local tribes, the local kings. Means the dress, hairstyle, lifestyle, jewels, everything was honoring the local lifestyle. Otherwise, if you see the whole carving, see when the Ramayana, Mahabharata was described. Those scenes are described in those temple walls. All the carvings are just like a typical Pallava carving of Tamil Nadu. The face, the way they look, the size. Pallava people are little short. Pandya people are too tall. Pandya guys are around 9 feet tall. Please understand, average height was 8 to 9 feet. But in the Pallava, it was average height was more like a 5 to 7. That was the Pallava's height. So the height, weight, Pallavas were heavy people. Pandyas were little lean people. Pandyas were very beautiful people. All that so-called the Anga Lakshanas and the well-built, masculine, that muscle, all that cut. Pandyas were that kind of people. Pallavas were more like a village and naturally grown body. Body which is not tuned or toned or well built consciously, a naturally grown body, a usual big belly and that kind of a people. So the whole body structure, jewelry structure and the way they are described, everything is typical Pallava style. But when the human beings are described like a dancers, priests, everything was in the honor of the local Cambodian people. Their dress, jewels, everything was as per the Cambodian lifestyle. So Suryavarma was able to amazingly bridge both the people by giving them amazing respect. Understand? Here you will see beautiful way, even though those tribes are not powerful enough to fight or powerful enough to stand Pallava king, the kind of a mental setup and personality, Pallava accepts all their culture and lifestyle and honors, and they take the best of both and enjoy. Taking the best of both and enjoying. Life is with choices. The more choices, more life. That was the principle with which the whole Cambodian civilization evolved. Maybe after one generation, 30 years, in Cambodia itself, they started developing the intelligence, means the craftsmen went from here, they started training and teaching, and the elephants which was taken from here, through those elephants, the native elephants got trained. It was by one generation, they are all well settled and prepared. After that only the temple building spree started. They were just enchanted, enthused, excited. The whole Cambodian population started building temples, and it must have been an amazing, thriving civilization. Because there's one temple wall dedicated to market life, city life of Cambodia. The whole purchase, selling, literally the one full wall, the whole shops are carved. The grain shop, food shop, clothes shop, footwear shop, and the ornament shop. How the market was happening, giving and selling was happening, the whole thing is carved in the walls. And I tell you, apart from a spiritual feast, inner awakening, the Cambodia will be just a cultural feast. It will be a cultural feast for you guys. About how it is going to be spiritual feast, I'll explain, I'll expand in further satsangs. Today I just wanted you guys to understand, with so much of struggle, what was the inspiration for these kings to do this work? Unending enthusiasm and excitement and inspiration. We are building one small temple. Even though I should not use the word small, it's our own temple. Of course, with all due respects, it's not small as per the temple, the spirituality is concerned. But as far as the size is concerned, I can't even use the word small. I have to use only the word tiny if I have to compare with Cambodian temples. Based on the size, I am saying. And we don't have to carve somewhere and bring it by ship and all that. Just under our nose it is getting carved, above our nose it is getting built. We know how much struggle we have. Some workers ran away, and even if they are working, they are demanding that they will drink every day, and in the ashram we cannot allow them to drink. They go out and drink, and if they come and just sleep silently, that is also okay, but they don't do that. They go out and drink. When they come, they are completely different people, and you don't even know, is this same fellow who was working for us in the morning? And when he comes back in the evening, the way he shouts, fights with these fellows fight and shout with every fellow whom they see. See, actually once they drink and come, we will know whether they are drunk or not based on before even entering the gate, they will start the fight with the watchman. I don't know why this whole field is suffering with this alcoholism. No, I want to tell you, this temple arts people, not even 80, I can say almost 95% of people, whether it is the wood carvers or the stone carvers or metal carvers, no, I feel deep sympathy for them. That why they are getting addicted and why it is being passed on to generation to generation. BAPS, Bhagavan Swaminarayan's organization, they are successful in making their temple carving staff addiction free. Hats off to their great work. Now I went and saw their workshop. Please understand, I am not lying, I am telling you the truth. Each team is around 3,000 people working. 3,000 people working. At any given time they are building 60 to 70 temples. Each team, 3,000 people working. And the first thing I asked, because this is the biggest problem I am facing, first thing I asked that in charge Swami, that Mahan Swami, Swami, how do you manage these fellows drinking? How are you managing? He said, no Swamiji, my staff don't drink. I said, okay, staff don't drink, but what about workers? He said, both together, come on. He was so sure. My staff and my workers, he said, to the last person who is whole day in the fire, beating the iron, making the tools, sharpening the tools, till the last person to the top guy, nobody drinks in our unit, Swamiji. I was shocked, oh God, is this possible? They made it possible. No, I am telling you the practical problems we face When we build temples, I also came back and tried with our workers. I told them, see, why do you need to drink? All the money you are given, I'll directly send it to your wife, your family. Whatever you need, food, clothes, everything I'll give you. Don't ask for money. They said, no, no, Swamiji, unless we drink, we cannot work because whole body will pain. Next day we can't work. They give their own reason. But still I am not able to 100% stop them drinking. Few people who are little sincere, having little spiritual understanding, devotion, few of them stopped. But few still secretly will go out, drink, and when they come back, if they don't fight, they don't get caught. If they fight, they get caught. And what to do? Nothing can be done. This is their lifestyle. Anyhow, we don't allow them to drink inside, that's all. We can feel little satisfied. It is not easy to handle such vast craftsmen, artists, skilled labor. It was too much. And I am really surprised. What was the way their wages were paid? If they fall sick, what was the way they were treated? And if there is some dispute and problem among them, how was the court and what was the judiciary method to solve their problem? How did they get married? What was their social structure? How was the housing was done for all those thousands and thousands of people? God. Because almost at least 60 days they have to be in the ocean. Bit by bit, even bit by bit if they travel. What was the entertainment for them all that 60 days? How did the elephants not go mad being confined to just one ship? Thousands and thousands and thousands of questions. Surprises, if not shocks, when I was visualizing. I should say, visualizing is not the right word. Seeing the Akashic records, file by file, how they built the first few temples. See, after the first few temples, then the people in the Cambodia, they learnt the whole science. How the tools were created, how the transportation was done, how the stone was assembled one upon the other. The amount of ropes required to move the temples, how was it made? The tools and accessories. God, I can go on and on and on for days to sing the glory of Suryavarma. All the major temples were built during the period of Suryavarma I and Suryavarma II. I think today is over just by describing what is Cambodia, introducing Cambodia, And the IA in Cambodia I will introduce in the further satsangs. It is just mind-boggling. Please understand. And still nobody is able to break the record. Still, this is the world's largest religious structure. This structure was built before even the religions today which they claim world's largest religions were even created. Before even these religions were created, these structures were built, and even now this stands as the world's largest religious structure. World's largest religious structure. You are now seeing world's largest religious structure. Understand? No, you can't understand. Even I can't understand, so don't worry. Forget about understanding. Let's see and enjoy. Let's see and enjoy. Wow. It's mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. So, with this, the essence of today's satsang, nothing called impossibility exists in possibility. Life is possibility. Universe is possibility. There is nothing called impossibility exists. This is the essence of today's satsang. With this, I bless you all. Let you all radiate with integrity, authenticity, responsibility, enriching and causing eternal bliss. Nityananda. Thank you.
Nityananda Dhyanapitham, Nityananda Nagar, off Mysore Road, Bidadi, Bengaluru. Phone 08027279999. www.nityananda.org. www.youtube.com/Life Bliss Foundation.